Welcome to Mark My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Mark My Words. This episode is sponsored by GrowX Labs. Quick question. When you're leading a team or growing a business, who helps you think clearly? GrowX Labs offers executive decision support, real-time access to a trusted strategist who helps you navigate tough calls, leadership blind spots, and everything in between. No fluff, no long-term commitment, just fast, honest insight from someone who gets it. If you're a founder or exec and need a sounding board, go to growxlabs.com/mark. That's grwxlabs.com/mark and book a discovery call today. If you've been listening to Mark My Words for the past several years, and especially here of late, I have been talking a lot and reflecting on my journey in the intro and have been talking a lot about, just the things that I have experienced and have influenced me to do what I am doing today. And when I first started Mark My Words, the whole point was to talk to people making career transitions and to talk about their pivots because, well, at the time that I created Mark My Words, I myself was thinking a lot about career pivots and where I wanted to go with my life. And, you sit and you, especially somebody like me, and I don't mean to necessarily glamorize my dreams over somebody who might dream of, I don't know, being a mechanic or an accountant, which may not sound quite as exciting to me, but I dreamed of working in the television industry. I dreamed of working at big companies, doing big things, and I didn't think about eventually going into entrepreneurship. I thought entrepreneurship was for a different type of person, but lo and behold, I kind of feel like I've learned, whether I think so or not, that I do have some entrepreneurial blood in my veins, for lack of a better way to put it. But I feel like even though Kayaian has certainly a much different type of journey than I've had, and has certainly, she's been on very big stages as a cellist and has been on some really amazing stages and has had a really amazing career and journey. Not that I haven't, I've certainly have had much more modest big stages in my journey, but it's not really about comparing or contrasting. It's more about just that pivot that, even though you've gone on and have done all these things that you've dreamed about, and oddly enough, you're like, I want something different. I want something like that's more personal. And I know for me, making that mindset change from wanting to climb the corporate ladder to doing something that was more personally fulfilling was really eye-opening. I don't know if that is a part of Kate's story, but we will go into the past with her because the past is really cool. But Kate has transitioned to Bermuda, which is sounds amazing. She transitioned to becoming a coach and a creator and still involved in, I shouldn't say still involved in the Bermuda Philharmonic Society. That's only over the past 6 years, but she's staying true to her roots with that direction. Kate, welcome to Mark My Words. How you doing today?
Oh, thank you so much, Mark. I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to this conversation and hello to everyone spending some time with us today.
I have been looking forward to this conversation for a while because I before we hit record, and you can see behind me that I'm an audiophile, and I knew that I would want to talk to you just based on your own music career, but it goes like well beyond that too, because you have a story that really aligns with the, you talk about going back to your roots. This episode is going to really align with Mark My Words and the roots and the whole reason, the whole mission of this show, even though, as I told you, things change. You get on Podmatch, you meet all kinds of people who listen, they want to be on your show, which is really flattering. And that message, that way of thinking about it changes. So, how about I put all of that to the side? And I usually like to start every episode by going in the Wayback Machine, in the DeLorean, going back and just giving you an opportunity because I'm guessing that music has been a passion for you, like from a pretty early age. I don't know if that is 100% the case or if there was anything else you wanted to do, but I will give you a chance to tell that story right now.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Um, so I was a cellist for most of my life, and I started when I was about 4.5. My mom had a friend who was very involved in the music scene. She had a daughter my age who was my best friend, and she played violin and piano. And my best friend's older brother, who was my older brother's best friend, played the cello. And so their mom invited me over and said, have Katie come over and just, the kids will play their instruments for her and she'll pick the one that she is naturally drawn towards. She'll have a favorite sound and want to do that. And so Carla played the violin and the piano for me and Blake played his cello for me. And I was in love with Blake, right? I mean, he was 8, he had red hair, he had freckles, and he played the cello. And at 4.5, I knew, Mark, I had the wisdom to understand that we would only be able to get married if we played the same instrument. And that's why I chose the cello. And luckily, I really liked it. So it ended up being a really good fit because, the irony of having an entire lifelong career based on a crush that I had when I was 4.5 is a little crazy. But I did really love it. I was very fortunate to grow up in an area where some of the best cello teachers in the world happened to be teaching at our local community school. And so I had great training and I loved it. I had the best of opportunities. I had a lot of support. And yeah, just kind of, you know, how it is in those things, whether it's athletics or arts or I don't know, lots of industries that kids kind of take to as youngsters where you're good and you get to this level and the adults around you say, okay, great, she would be good to do this, or she should do this competition, or she should do this summer festival. So all of the next steps were always laid out in front of me. And so it was a very easy path. At that point, most of my friends were fellow musicians. We were all, my friends from youth orchestra. I spent my whole Saturdays at the music center. It was my entire identity from that early an age. It was everybody, all of my school teachers knew me as Kate, the cellist. My friends would introduce me as this is my friend Kate. She's a cellist. Even my parents would introduce me. This is our daughter Katie. She plays the cello, right? It was the next thing after my name. And again, like I said, I really loved it. I had a lot of adults in my life who had wonderful careers as professional cellists, not my own parents, but my dad worked at a hardware store. My mom was a school librarian. Like their jobs were interesting to them, but not to me. And so my friends' parents who had very glamorous jobs as professional musicians, that was it. That was what I wanted. They got to travel the world. They got to, hang out with super famous people. And I was like, I want that. And I got to have that. It was really incredible. It's the things that you dream about as a teenager, as a kid. You go to music school. The excitement of getting into a really prestigious music school is incredible. And like I said, for the longest time, there's nowhere else I wanted to be. Right? Saturday night, 8 p.m., people are out at parties doing things. No, I just wanted to be on stage. And the fact that I got to be on stage every Saturday night, every Friday night, it was a dream come true until it wasn't. And, it was a very foreign feeling that I'm sure we'll get into. But I do want to say that people ask me all the time now that I've moved on to a different career. People ask me like, well, do you regret all of the years you spent as a cellist? And I say, no, absolutely not. I was so lucky and so grateful, and I loved every minute of it. But I changed. My life changed. My priorities changed. I evolved as a person, and with that evolution came wanting different things. I think that's something that happens to a lot of us, and we don't really always pay attention to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I can't say that I played on the stages that you played on or have met like very many, really hardly at all, like really notable people. I think I met Potsy from Happy Days as
Hey, that's pretty cool.
it is pretty cool, like, but I mean, certainly when you compare that to meaning like, I don't know, Taylor Swift or something like that. Not that you said that, but um, you know, I actually want to say that all of those experiences that I've had meeting people, because there have been some people I've met that I'm like never in a million years, like Marie Osmond, like I did mic checks for these people when I worked at a certain home shopping channel with a Q, uh, which those of us of a certain age will know exactly what that is.
I
But
was just talking about that with somebody today.
really,
Yeah,
then the
as a throwback, it was a memory I had. Yeah,
the universe works in mysterious ways.
it
But
does.
yeah, I mean, I can I'm going somewhere with this because I spent my whole childhood just dreaming of doing exactly what I did. Now, that was during my internship. I wound up doing very, like, thankless work beyond that, just like doing quality control on, like, shows and commercials, which is something I still do, which is awesome. It's really cool work. It's just not like, hey, I met, you know, Potsy from Happy Days today, or I met as this person or that person. I think Katie Couric was another person that I was on set with. I'm name dropping. But um yeah, you dream about doing these things, and they're all still things that still excite me, but I know that there came a point in my life where I had a job for 10 years um, after my internship, and things changed. Like, I got to work in the field for a while. I have no regrets about taking that path because, frankly, I didn't know that all the things that I was going to do, especially during this decade, I didn't know any of that was ever going to happen. I never thought I was going to have like a podcast or any kind of entrepreneurial aspirations. And you just kind of, now for you, the one thing that I thought of when you told your story is I wonder if Kate ever, as either in the moment or in reflection, ever thought about the fact you kept saying Kate the cellist, and after a while, it almost starts to like sound entrepreneurial. Did you ever view yourself as like an entrepreneur of sorts, or was it just I'm a musician?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, Mark, because the answer is yes and, right? I mean, I was just a musician. All I wanted to be was a musician. And yet, when I look back, I mean, not all of my friends were musicians, right? So like, a friend would come over after school, we'd be hanging out and they would say like, "Oh, let's, I don't know, play with the Barbie dream house or whatever." And I'd say, "Oh, yeah." Or we could make friendship bracelets and sell them on the corner. Like I was the one always having a lemonade stand. And there was one summer that I remember, there was this little summer camp that came up for cellists and or a workshop and came up last minute. My teacher was like, "Hey, this famous person's coming in, like they're doing a workshop. Kate should go and it costs X amount," right? And my parents, who they really didn't have a lot of money, they scrimped and saved and sacrificed a lot to pay for my lessons and all of the other stuff. They were like, "Listen, we've budgeted the summer, like we don't have anything left to pay for this workshop." And I was so mad. I was like, "What do I have to make my own money now?" Like defiant little 11-year-old. And so I started all my friends were going to be at this workshop that week. So I did a summer camp in my backyard. I invited all of the neighborhood little kids. I mean, talked to the moms and said, "Oh, I'm going to do this camp. It's going to be story time and puppet time." And I chose some books and I would read a story and then we would make a puppet based on some of the characters in the book. And then I would make lemonade and cookies and stuff and everything. And the parents paid me a fortune just to get their kids off their hands for a couple of hours. And I made so much money that week. It was incredible. It was the first time I thought, "Oh, I had this idea. I saw this need." It came from the fact that all of these moms were competing for my time. And I realized like, "Oh, I can just have all of the kids at my house at the same time." I mean, they could look in my backyard and see the kids, right? I was 11. This is Gen X, right? Yes, you paid an 11-year-old to watch your newborns. It was a standard thing. Um, but yeah, so in hindsight, I could see that there was always this entrepreneurial side to me that I liked seeing, identifying a need and coming up with some interesting project to fill that need. And now, a lot of people say, "Well, you were a cellist, so therefore you have always been a creative." And here's the thing about classical musicians, we do not consider ourselves creative people, right? We are well trained, we have high levels muscular skills and musical skills, but there's nothing creative. We sit down and we play the dots and lines that are on the page in front of us and we memorize it. And we are not supposed to play it differently than the composer laid it out for us, right? We are not supposed to be creative in our endeavors. And so a lot of us, whereas a jazz musician, we see jazz musicians as the ultimate creative people. Rock musicians who are writing their own stuff, they are creative. A composer who's writing the music that we play, they are creative. Somebody who's taking nothing and creating something new is creative. And so that identity didn't fit with me. The idea of an entrepreneur who's creating new things versus a cellist who just shows up and plays what's on the stand. Um, there was a disconnect there. At the same time, remember there was one summer I was home from music school, and I had this file on my computer that I remember I labeled it KK Enterprises. And I had this idea that, like, as a professional cellist, I would be on tour and I could sell like t-shirts, I could sell merch, could sell my recordings, I could do all of these things. And I sort of had this fantasy of like running my career like a business. And that was really interesting to me. I was kind of intrigued by the whole power suit idea of going to an office. What was it like to go to some big skyscraper and show up in a power suit and high heels and make important decisions all day? Meanwhile, I'm sitting in my PJs, practicing the cello for 4 to 6 hours a day. Um, it was just felt like a different world. And so, when I got to my late 30s, early 40s, and I started having these feelings of, I don't know that I want to be on stage. I don't know if I want to give up all of my nights and weekends for the rest of my life. I don't know if being a performing cellist is giving me enough satisfaction in life anymore. And part of that entrepreneurial spirit started to come back. And I started to think like, well, what could I do? What project could I take on? And at first I assumed it would be around cello. And actually at first, all of my projects were based around cellists and helping cellists. Um, and that slowly pivoted bit by bit towards what I'm doing today. So yeah, to answer a very long answer to your question of the entrepreneur did not fit with my identity as a cellist, and yet in hindsight, I could see it was always there.
That was an amazing answer, albeit long. I appreciate it because it makes me see just how similar two people who went on completely different paths can be. Because when you talked about the fact that you're, you know, I call it a job, it feels weird to call being a cellist a job, but your job as a professional cellist, just sitting there reading the lines and the fact that you viewed it as not creative, I feel a strong connection to that because I've worked for some of the biggest entertainment media companies. Um, I feel so egotistic saying in the world, but it kind of is. Um, some really big companies, and I feel like I can draw a parallel because what I'm looking at and what I'm doing quality control on, very creative work. But my job is anything but creative. I'm basically just sitting there watching, making sure that whatever I am watching follows the rules or follows the law. And obviously, the company rules. I'm thinking a little more of my job now, which definitely has to follow some particular laws. But it's just so funny when, when I just think about the fact that, like, some people, like, it's different when people view from the outside compared to, like, what it is like when you're doing it. And again, I didn't know that I wanted something more until I kind of just left my job of 10 years and started working elsewhere because I wound up in management in another lifetime. And I, it's a company that they're still reorganizing to this day. They've had like a billion reorgs, and I left during one of the very early reorgs. I'm like, oh yeah, I got a great resume. I'm gonna just get another managerial job. But I wound up just freelancing and doing very similar work to what I'm doing today, even. And I just started to feel like, okay, I don't feel like this is fulfilling my soul anymore. Just the idea of climbing the corporate ladder just didn't seem as fulfilling. And that's what really started me on the path that I'm on now, where I started creating content, started, I eventually created this podcast, which is a long story I don't want to fill too much time with. But yeah, I really want to just segue because I know how I felt when I felt like, I guess, something that I dreamed about wasn't as aligned with uh, me as it used to be. Even though I love working in the entertainment business, I still am doing something as my day job. And, you know, incredible company. That's like a big reason why I'm still even doing it full time. But, uh, how did it feel for you when you were like, I've achieved all this success, this is amazing, I'm doing all this stuff, but it just doesn't feel aligned with who I am? Like, how is this even possible? I'm Kate the cellist.
Yeah, it feels terrible. To be perfectly honest, it feels, for anybody listening who is thinking, "Gosh, I think I want to change careers." But maybe they're a lawyer, they went to law school. Maybe they're a doctor, they went to medical school, right? It's the same thing. Like, I invested so much time. I invested my entire life. So many other people invested in me. My parents sacrificed. I always say, I joke that my brother would have gone on a lot more family vacations if I didn't play the cello, right? Uh, I got a lot of scholarships and financial aid through my life. Like, all of those people invested in me. So there's a little bit of guilt of like, well, who am I to just give it up after all of these people have helped me to get to this place? There was guilt over all of the people who, you know, for lack of a better wording, I sort of beat out to get there. All of the kids who didn't get into the youth orchestra that I got into, all of the kids who didn't get into the music school that I got into, all of the kids who didn't get the gigs I got, that I kind of edged them out and now I'm leaving, which is ridiculous, right? Like, it all works out for everybody. But yeah, so there was a lot of guilt, which I had to work through, which I had to sort of reassess those stories, and rewrite the stories of like, no, people invested in me because they wanted to allow me to do the things that I wanted to do. They believed in me, but it didn't come with any obligations, right? So I had to do that. I think to what you were saying about your career, how much you loved it, but then you decided at some point you wanted to move on. I get that question a lot of like, well, how do I know if I just hate my particular job or if I want to pivot to a different career? And I say, no matter how glamorous something is, no matter how much we aspire to be a thing, at the end of the day, it is a job, right? I got to travel the world as a cellist. I got to make music with my best friends. I got to make music with really amazing artists around the world. At the end of the day, it's just a job. You have to show up, you have to practice, you have to be prepared, you have to deal with different personalities, you have to deal with payments, not getting paid, managers and accountants and all of that stuff, right? You have to fill out the forms like everybody else. At the end of the day, it's just a job, and every job has pain points, right? There is not a single job in the world that is awesome 100% of the time. And so, I think we've all heard the phrase, you have to choose your hard. And so for me, practicing hours and hours and hours every single day was not hard. I mean, it's hard, but like that never bothered me. To the last day, it never bothered me having to spend hours sitting down with the cello working on my craft. It was the giving up of what is for everybody else free time. That was the pain. It was never having a weekend. It was always having to decline the dinner party invitation or the party invitation, the wedding invitations. It was how difficult it was to plan vacations because you always hoped you were going to get called for some gig. You always wanted to be available. Those are the things that were my pain points. And that's not a job. That's the career. That's the industry, right? There was no such thing as like having, getting a different job as a professional cellist and having my weekends free. Like that's not a thing. So I would say that, if what your pain point is, if the hard that you're facing is not something that you can make better in your current career, or it's not something that you can fix by getting a different job in your industry, then that's a really good sign that you're ready to consider transitioning to something else.
I totally agree with that. And I have kind of a weird story because I've been working towards what I'm doing for a long time, and I think as I started up the show and I was working on, okay, how do I want to grow and all of that, a great opportunity kind of fell on my lap when we moved down here to Florida. So in that way, and again, I know one point that I want to agree on that you made is that I can also agree with the fact that even a dream job or working at a dream company, it can still, at the end of the day, it's just a job. It's an awesome job, but every job has like their good points and bad points. And even if I devoted my life to podcasting or doing just full blown entrepreneurial full time, there would still be things that I didn't like about it or, would be an inconvenience or whatever. I'm sure I would figure out ways to make it like a life that kind of like revolves around what I wanted to revolve around. And that's really great. That's certainly a perk. I know I have a ton of flexibility with what I do during the day these days, which is why I'm able to coordinate, uh, meetings like this during my day. And I mean, every job, whether it's entrepreneurial or not, has good points, but they also have bad points, and that goes for dream jobs too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In It took me a few years to sort of figure out how to extricate myself. It was actually COVID that gave me the opportunity. Uh, for a couple of years, I had been talking to friends and trusted colleagues about wanting to leave the industry, to stop being a cellist, and their answers were always like, "You can't. You cannot. You cannot quit, Kate. You are not allowed to. That's not a thing." But when COVID hit, we were all forced to quit temporarily. And a lot of my colleagues were absolutely devastated. Like, oh my God, I can't play a concert. Like, all of my concerts for 6 months have been canceled. And it wasn't just the loss of income that felt devastating to them. It was like, they didn't know who they were if they weren't on stage performing. They were completely lost. I, on the other hand, felt complete relief. Absolute 100%. You've just canceled all of my concerts for the next 6 months. Thank you. This is amazing. fantastic. I don't have to go on that tour. I don't have to play that concert. I don't have to learn that repertoire. Like, I get 6 months off. And I just took it as the gift that it was, as horrible as COVID was. I took this part of it as a gift that I was forced into a sabbatical and I could see how I would feel, judgment free. Nobody was going to judge me for taking those 6 months off. After 6 months, I decided I think I need another 6 months. And I had a concert that I accepted for about a year for like spring, I think it was June of 2021. So I had that concerts in the book and it was in Bermuda. It was great players. It was a great program. It was music that I love to play. So I knew like even if I have to dust off the cello after a year and get back in shape, I won't mind. Like it's a good piece. I enjoy it. It'll be fun. But I knew, I did that concert and I knew I was like, I don't need to do any more. And I hadn't taken any more concerts because at that point I knew. Um,
Wow.
and so, yeah, in that time, it's interesting that on March 13th, Friday, March 13th, 2020, I did a recital here in Bermuda, knowing that lockdown was starting that first day, feeling that relief of like, this is the last concert I'm going to have to play for a long time. And was so ready just to be like, okay, we'll see. And by March 20th, I was building the website for the virtual Summer Cello Festival. So it took
Wow.
exactly a week for those entrepreneurial leanings to just sort of kick in and say, look, here's a need. Everyone's summer festivals have been canceled. I know all of the cellists around the world, and I know I work, at the time I was teaching sort of the high level advanced high school and college students. So I was tapped into that network. I knew I had worked in admissions. I knew how to build a website. I knew how to run things. And I was like, and I had been teaching on Zoom for years because of my traveling. So I was like, I think I am the best person, believe it or not, which blew my mind. I was like, how is this possible that me here, really, I am the best person qualified to put together this thing that I think is a big need? And it happened. It was a big success, and that turned into a year-round online teaching program, which was another big success. And that's what led to my colleagues contacting me and asking if I could help them create projects online that would give them a revenue during this time. And Mark, when I started coaching people, and now this was when I first started, it was not coaching, it was like career consultation, it was helping them create projects and programs. I loved it so much. It was like, oh, this is what I want to be doing with my time. And I felt like everything that I had learned somehow, everything I had learned as a cellist, as a performer, as a communicator, as a creator, I could bring to the table in that kind of work. And of course, you can't be a career consultant without some life coaching skills. So I studied actual coaching so that I could help people through their mindset issues. And yeah, I fell in love with it, and I realized that that was what was missing from my career. So I was still able to create beautiful things. I was still able to reach out and communicate with my audiences, with the people that I was working with, but it was just a different manner. And I felt like, gosh, like almost like I had been wearing somebody else's jacket for decades. And I finally somebody said, "Oh, no, 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 this is the jacket that has your name on it." And it looked almost identical. It was the same style, but it just fit perfectly for the first time. And yeah, that's an incredible feeling when you really find that thing that you were meant to do.
I can relate to that. And because my life has gone in a certain trajectory and, was born with, a rare syndrome, cleft lip and palate was kind of like included. So that's why I have spent most of my life working more behind the scenes and like thankless TV work because I like wanted to be around it. But my mindset was like, no, nobody's gonna wanna, like, listen to me. Nobody's gonna wanna watch me. Like, who wants to watch me? But as and I said I wasn't gonna really tell my story a whole lot to take too much time from you, but it's a story I've told a lot on this show. But long story short, I started going to networking events during that time period when I was like doing a lot of freelance, and I met entrepreneurs and other, influencer types who uh they influence me. What could figure that an influencer influence somebody. But they were like, hey, have you ever thought about creating content? Have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And I'm like, no, I have never thought about that, because I think if I'm born into this world a little bit like, differently, normal, quote unquote. Not to put a definition on normal, but I might have had a lot more of a bug to be like on camera, because I think I always kind of did, but I basically sold myself short and wound up around COVID. It wasn't because of COVID, because in my mind, I was going to do the show anyway, but COVID was very helpful in that most of the world was home. I actually, funny story, quick funny story. I actually had a job where I went into work. It was very hands on radio, on air, techie kind of job, keeping tons of channels on the air. Uh, you might be able to guess where that was. Big, very big satellite company. But um, I remember sitting there during COVID, and the headline on TV was like, oh, like 96% of the world is at home. And here I am, I'm the 4% at work. I'm like, really? So that was like just very funny how
Yeah,
that kind of like transpired. But um I wound up uh just taking advantage of the COVID times myself. And I feel like the way that you and your career has evolved, that's the way a lot of careers evolve. And even for me with this show, I mean, I didn't like come out of the womb having like a bunch of connections and guests. You know, I had to work for it. I had to meet people, and one thing led to another. Like, I started booking people that I knew through my networking who had businesses. And then I challenged myself to like go in Facebook groups and try to like book people I didn't know. Like, that was a big goal in 2021. Let's book people that we don't really know and do like a real show. Not that the first year wasn't, but you know, there's something to be said for getting people that you don't know versus people you do.
sure.
Um, which can also either way can be good, but it just feels weird. Oh, this is a friend of mine this week, and this is a friend of
Hmm.
mine. Like, you want to meet all kinds of people, and so the way that your career kind of like evolved and you built that virtual Rolodex and have created something, I can relate to that. And that's kind of not only how this show has grown, but I'm actually trying to mentor somebody that I met on social media. Um, they knocked on my door because I've been podcasting for so long. They want me to listen to their podcast and want me to coach them through it, which is something I've wanted to do. And much like you, I'm hoping the same kind of thing kind of like builds up. Like, you start by helping a friend, and then it just grows.
That's how it works. That's how it works. I love so much about what you said. And after I started doing this work and found my way and worked through all of these issues, I wanted to write the book that I needed at that time when I first started thinking, I think I want a different career. I couldn't find any resources around how to figure this out. And so I wrote my book, Beyond Potential. It's a guide for creatives who want to reassess, redefine, and reignite their careers. And it's all of the things you said. First, you had to reassess those old stories that, like, oh, I couldn't do a podcast. Look at me. Look at who I am. That's not a podcaster. Like, says who? Right? It was just a story you were telling yourself that you weren't right, right? So, but I think we all have these stories that are standing in the way of us doing the things that we want to do. And it takes sitting down and getting quiet with ourselves and asking the right questions to figure out what those stories are. What are the ones that are like we just made them up or we heard them from somebody else and they are just keeping us stuck? And the first step is to rewrite them. And then the second thing we do is we decide, we redefine who we want to be now. As we have evolved, as we mature, as we grow as people, who is it that we want to be? We redefine our identity, right? And then that third part, the reignite, it's just little bit by little bit. You get a friend, you help this person, you invite these people, and then you think, what's the next step? I'm going to invite guests I don't know, right? And its book is just, it holds your hand and it tells you just what I was saying earlier as a cellist, when like the next step was just held out for me. It was amazing. It was great. I felt supported at every step. I always felt like I was doing the right next best thing. And that's what this book is for anybody who was looking to transition either their career or just any aspect of their life. We think about the gap between who we are today and who we could be, who we want to be. And this book really does help you get there. So I really appreciate all of that stuff that you said. I mean, it's the way forward. It's the way through all of this.
And you made a lot of good points in there, but one thing that really stuck in my mind, the person that I'm trying to help with their podcast right now, and this is a problem I run into a lot with people that I meet, they sell themselves short in a lot of the same ways that I think I was selling myself short, in that they're second guessing their talent, their potential. And I know with the person I'm helping right now, they, they're just starting out. So there's like little minor things that need to be tweaked. I'm sure if you went back to the first couple seasons of Mark My Words, there would be plenty of things I could tweak. And that's all a part of the growing process. You just gotta do it, really, when it comes down
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
doing anything for yourself as entrepreneurial. But I really just had to emphasize with them because their voice sounds amazing. Like their voice sounds like it was made to be communicating like this. And it's just a solo podcast, but I really just had to like make sure I'm like, look, you're doing great. Like, don't second guess yourself. Don't question. I mean, you can question, I guess, but um, it's hard for people to see what their potential is. And I know that you have a point here in your rundown about what it means to live beyond your potential. And I know for both of us, we had certain dreams and aspirations, and we achieved a lot of those things and thought that that was the mountain. Now, do
Mhm.
you have a lot of people that you work with that are dealing with that? And, how do you help them to see that there's another peak or another level that they can get to? Because I think we all have another level that we can get to, and we just need a certain person, the right person, whatever that means, to help us see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have that saying that, or I love that saying that it's hard to read the bottle. Sorry, it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle. Right? So I think that's why coaches are great. That's why reading is great. We can resonate with things. Listening to podcasts, you might resonate with something that, oh, wait, that I feel something there. I didn't see it before, but I feel it. And so yeah, most of my client work, so I do a few things. I do public speaking, so I go to a lot of conferences and retreats and work with people on career transition and ideas of potential. And I have a lot of one-on-one clients, and a lot of them are creatives who are looking to shift to a different kind of career. A lot of them are corporate types, executives, C-suite types who are looking to do something more creative maybe, but everybody's in that position. A lot of people are retiring, whether they retire early or they retire at a traditional retirement age. Um, they're just sort of thinking, okay, well, I did what I thought I could do. What else can I do? And so, yeah, that idea of beyond potential, the title of my book, it can be a couple of things. It can be, okay, well, this is what other people told you, right? People my whole life told me, oh, Katie, you have the potential to be a really great cellist. You have so much potential as a cellist. You could go really far. Okay, so I lived my entire life thinking, like, according to what somebody else thought was my potential. And I think at a certain point, we get to decide that for ourselves. So it could be beyond what other people told you your potential was. It could be beyond what you previously thought your potential was. It can be, you know what? Who cares what my potential is? I really feel like being an accountant. I love numbers. I love counting. I just want to be an accountant, right? No offense. I always use accountants as a joke. When I live in Bermuda, where
Yeah,
everybody
I
is an
do too.
accountant, right? So when you go to a party and you ask somebody what they do, they just like, I'm an accountant. Okay. Like everybody else in the room. That's fine. Um, but yeah, I think it's so important for us to just decide what do you want your life to look like, and then just go out and grab it. Go do it. Go do it. So yeah, that's a lot. All of my clients are working towards some aspect of that, of living their best life and reaching their new defined version of their potential.
Well, I appreciate you helping me to reach my potential by getting through a whole episode. I know we had a false start, which is a little bit rare for me. So
No
I was like,
problem.
oh my gosh, am I gonna what's gonna happen in this episode? But uh let me give you an opportunity because I didn't even really get to tell everybody like, you're from creator and coach of the Profit Pivot and, just everything else. Why don't I, instead of rambling on and going nowhere with this, why don't I give you an opportunity to tell everybody how they can work with you, how they can find you, anything else that you want to add, you're free to add it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark. One stop shopping, you can go to my website, which is katekaian.com. You can find me on Instagram, and I check my DMs for my non followers. So come and say hello and tell me you heard me on Mark My Words podcast, and tell me what you're up to. You can get my book, Beyond Potential, a guide for creatives who want to reassess, redefine, and reignite their careers. You can get that anywhere. And yeah, I work as a coach one-on-one. I lead a group program that starts in the fall called Creatives Leadership Academy. And you can hire me to speak at your event. I love traveling. What I love most about traveling for speaking is that I still get my weekends at home. So, but I love getting out there and meeting with people and working with people. And then I have my own podcast called Tales from the Lane, where I talk about this stuff as well. So, but you can find out all of that information from my website, katekaian.com.
Well, Kate, I'm glad that you mentioned your podcast. That was another oversight on my part. Yes, go listen to Kate's podcast. And I also, before we wrap this up, another thing I can relate to is the struggle with weekends because I'm in an unconventional field where I have had certain phases where I've had weekends off. I do get Saturday off these days, but it's been pretty rare to have a full weekend. So that's something that a lot of people who do more conventional work, like perhaps accounting, don't understand that it's hard. There's so many people who, no matter how long I'm doing a job, they can never remember what my days off are or what my schedule is. So it's good to link up with somebody who understands that kind of struggle.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I didn't have weekends from the age of 5 until 45.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
good for
I
you
love them
for,
now. They're my favorite. They're the best.
yeah, believe me, I cherish my days off are Friday and Saturday, and Friday's still a pretty cool day to be off. It's like weekend-ish,
It's
but
weekend adjacent.
it is. I love the way you put that. Uh, yeah, I cherish just what I have because I know that it's pretty rare, especially when you're in a field like you or I have been in. But
Yeah,
putting that aside, Kate, thanks again for being on Mark My Words. It was a real pleasure. It was kind of fun hearing your story. I feel like we could have talked for another hour.
absolutely, Mark. We can do that offline. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Mark, thank you for having me on. And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you almost sounded like you were going to wrap up the show. I can tell that you have been podcasting for a while. Well, I am Mark Schmidt. This was Kayaian. Did I say that right?
You sure
I
did. Yeah.
I have been making myself crazy with your last name this whole time. But thank you, Kate. Thank you all for listening. I am Mark Schmidt, the host of Mark My Words. I will see you soon with another episode. Bye for now. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.